Yes, can I remind members the meeting is being recorded and will subsequently be made available to the public for listening purposes. Could we have the Sederunt, please?
Good morning. We have 5 members present. We are quorate. Councillor Scobie and Councillor McGregor are not present, but may be along later in the meeting.
Any apologies? Okay. Can we turn to item number 2? Are there any declarations of interest? Okay. Item number 3, purely for noting the minutes of the meeting on 16th of February 2016. We're happy to note it. Okay. Item number 4, it's a regular report on the Scottish Welfare Fund discretionary housing payments. Can I ask officers if they've got anything to add to the report before members?
Nothing to add to the report, thank you. Happy to take any questions.
It's just something in 3.7, talking about the applications are extremely complex. I just wondered if you would comment on that. I mean, why are these any different to what we've had before? And is it likely to get worse? Are we going to need more people to assist? Or anything that you can mention about that?
Thank you. It's referring to discretionary housing payment applications from customers on universal credit. Because of the structure of the new benefit, universal credit is assessed monthly at one point in the month. So we really need to make sure that anybody whose circumstances are likely to change, we have to review their discretionary housing payment on a monthly basis. On the structure of the award that we give just now, we are only awarding 6 weeks, then 6 weeks, then 6 weeks. So the number of times we have to revisit that universal credit DHP would be low. However, the size criteria DHPs, we could in reality be changing them on a monthly basis, because a customer could be getting housing costs 1 month and then none the next. But that's just the basis of the new universal credit benefit and the reality of the situation we're facing. What will happen in the future for discretionary housing payments, we can't really say. If it was to roll out to full service, which I know will come in the future for universal credit, then all our applications will be in that style. The system we use for universal credit DHPs isn't exactly streamlined as I would like it to be. So that's one of the things we're going to be looking at over the next few years to see if there's a better system to manage this process. Just now, we've been used to, with discretionary housing payments, there's a clear link with housing benefit. So when housing benefit's updated, the discretionary housing payment updates. With universal credit, we're not going to have that. So that's the difficulty, but we would look to see if there was a system that was able to link it with effectively council tax reduction, which holds that customer's universal credit award, and hopefully update automatically on that basis.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, it's just the reserves that we agreed, I think it was 217k recently. Obviously, we haven't need to draw down from those reserves, and the final allocation for tranche 2, as it says in 3.5, was 389,000 and a bit. So I suppose first question is, okay, what happens to that now unallocated 217k? And also just later on, it sort of indicates that what we're expecting for 2016-17 is estimated at 186,446. That's in 3.8, which is a similar level to what we'd been anticipating this year. Obviously, we don't know the final figure until May, June next year. But are we in the habit of conservative estimates, because there's a significant difference between what the tranche 2 award was and what we're sort of planning for, if you like? So are we going to have a repeat sort of situation where we're asking to make another ask towards reserves for 200k, and then we get the award, and then the reserves, what happens to the reserves, basically, that we've now effectively unallocated that 217k?
Can I take that one? The information we had received from the Scottish Government last year indicated that we were expecting to receive the 182,000 in tranche 2 payment. the look of surprise on my face when we received the notification letter, see when we got 389, would have shocked most people. It was one of those things that you're thinking, do you query it? No. Thanks very much. In the bank, and then move on to the next one. The information on the level of awards that we're expected to have for Tranche 2 next year is based on the information the Scottish Government have sent us at the time. They have actually said this is what we expect to give you for Tranche 2. If next May, June, they give me 182, I'll be happy. If they give me more than 182, I'll be... what I'm proposing or hoping to do with the reserves, and obviously it's your decision, is to hope that we'll have some left for future, because we can't guarantee they're going to have enough money to continue at this level. Had we had to draw down last year, we were expecting to run out of money at the end of this year and have no reserves, so be left with purely Scottish Government and DWP money, which would have meant that we would have had a lot of customers who would be unable to help. I'm just proposing that we would roll forward the reserves continually to ensure that we've got money for future-proofing discretionary housing payments and supporting our vulnerable communities as long as we possibly can.
Thank you. So I think that's getting back to what now happens to the unallocated reserve. So is it effectively ring-fenced within SWF, discretion DHP? So how much reserves do we have? And obviously the 217k that we didn't need to draw from, if you like, because we're compensated or funded by the Scottish Government. What's that at now, and is that really just a kind of contingency reserve specifically for this? It can't, but it's locked into DHP and SWF. It's not for the wider council, as it were.
No, the actual position of the reserves is highlighted at point 3.6. That's where we're at, because we're exactly the same position at reserves as we were at February committee when we agreed the new DHP policy. This money is ring-fenced for DHP for customers. We're holding it for that purpose. I don't think there's any legal requirement for that to be the case, but that's certainly how it's being held by our finance colleagues and ourselves. Yes, exactly. At the moment, we've got 391,000 reserves. We're expecting to use some of those reserves this year if we only receive 182. If it does run out and we have no reserves left, then the criteria would end up being extremely strict. And it could be at the point where any customer asking for a DHP that doesn't have a size criteria requirement is a flat no. No, nothing at all, not even 6 weeks, not even less than that. I'm not looking forward to that. They intended to spend 35 million overall for size criteria. That's how much money they had given, or a figure. So when they came to do the 20%, we had advised them how much we had spent in DHP as they had requested, and they basically worked out across Scotland there was sufficient to cover everybody. We weren't the only council who ended up cashing. I really don't want to ask any more.
I'll certainly ask if they don't give us more next year, but anyway. Okay, any other members' questions? No. Okay, can we turn to the recommendations? Members happy to note 2.1, 2.2, and happy to agree to continue the current policy. Okay, thank you. Okay, can we turn to item number 5, and this centres around the administration of the Scottish Welfare Fund and discretionary housing payments. Can I ask officers anything to add to the report before members?
Nothing to add to the report. Happy to take questions.
Colin, Chair. Sorry. Clearly we're getting less from the UK government to help populate the system, you know, as far as resources are, you know, people and doing the work. I just wonder if you had an explanation why that's been cut, because you still have to deliver the benefits of this. They need people to do that, and I just wondered if we'd had an explanation why they felt it necessary to cut, you know, how we can afford to employ personnel to do it.
What we're talking about here is money that we received from the Scottish Government in relation to the delivery of Scottish Welfare Fund. The amount that they passed on to local authorities for this delivery was an indication of how much the DWP had been spending on delivering a purely transactional service to customers. The Scottish Government have designed the Scottish Welfare Fund and have agreed that this is the level of funding local authorities will receive to deliver that. That hasn't been cut. The funding from Scottish Welfare Fund delivery has not been cut. The money we get from the national government to deliver discretionary housing payments has been set at a standard level and was quite significantly increased when discretionary housing payments were expanded on the introduction of the bedroom tax social sector size criteria. But that's set around, what did I put in the report, around £35,000. What is being cut quite harshly and without general explanation is the Benefits Administration Subsidy, which is the money that we use to deliver housing benefit, which, as you know, is delivered within the same service under the same directorate. Initially, when welfare reform started to happen, what local authorities received was an efficiency cut of around about 7 to 10%. This 7 to 10% cut seems to have been continued year on year. As part of my work with the Practitioners Operations Group, with other local authorities in the United Kingdom and direct with heads in the DWP, we are raising continually on the inability for local authorities to continue delivering this service without the necessary funding to deliver. But the reality is they are our customers. They are our communities. They are our vulnerable people living in our wards and in our areas. So unless we were to ask local authorities across the country, say, we're just not doing it anymore, then we would be the ones left with the customers without the support. The only other part of it is they are suggesting that we have a reduction in caseload, which is just further cut. There's the explanation the last time I asked was they received a cut from national government, so we would get one for delivery of DWP benefits. We're not alone. All local authorities in Scotland are saying exactly the same thing. The benefit admin cuts are becoming unsustainable. But the reality is, what do we do? We've cut the service back, we've streamlined, we've ensured we deliver as efficiently as we possibly can. We've got the evidence there to present to the DWP that we need more, but unless they're going to change their ways after all these years, they're just going to continue saying no.
Well, thanks. That's an excellent answer for a basic question. No, thanks, because it helps make the decision we're going to make later a lot more clearer for me, so thanks for that.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, I think looking at 2.3 recommendation, the 98k from the anti-poverty fund, when I read this report, I thought, oh, it's too complicated. What's this really getting at? But I think that was just because I was technically on holiday, although I didn't feel like it. But the 98k, you've just explained there about the sort of UK sort of streamlining, if you like. And at the very last paragraph, I think it talks about continuing the delivery of the Scottish Welfare Fund. And that's what the 98k is for. So I think, obviously, because of the complexity of the different benefit systems and different sources of income and the different, I suppose, time shares of staff used for different functions, if you like, it's a bit of a cocktail in terms of how we managed to deliver this, given the sort of 3 or 4 way kind of funding and services that we need to deliver. I suppose one question is, what's left in the anti-poverty fund? Should we ask for this and receive it? And also, are we kind of compensating one fund delivery from a cut from another source, which should be actually used for something else? I'm a bit cloudy on this. Even when I read it a couple of times, I was trying to work out the numbers and thinking, are we actually using one source of money, which should be for one thing, for another?
I'd have to double check exactly what's left in the anti-poverty fund. My understanding there was is 500,000 in there. Now, at this point in time, that's an unallocated fund, waiting for bids into it for initiatives and for anything that meets the anti-poverty strategy. I take your point about substituting one for the other. I think when we were looking at what Scottish Welfare Fund needed to deliver, to just deliver a basic service, and what we're talking about here is just delivering the basic service. This is not, a bells or whistles on service. We looked at what available streams of funding there was available, and at this point in time, all we've got to look at is the anti-poverty fund. If we take, have a successful bid into it for this, undoubtedly that takes it away from potentially something else that's out there. But I'm not aware at this point in time of what other bids that are going into that fund, or what this would, or what sort of challenges there would be up against, for other areas.
Thank you, Chair. For me, the report is quite self-explanatory. There's no point in having a safety net if we don't have the staff to run the service. And it points out here in the report the stress, people in stress, in stressed circumstances are going to be even more stressed. And times will slip as well. And, there's no point at all in, as far as I'm concerned, debating it. I think the 98,000, if the service needs it to provide vital services to people, in poverty, then I think we have to agree.
Well, what it's for me is there any other way of doing it? If you had a magic wand, the papers talk elsewhere about automation and more streamlined and use of technology. Now, if you had a magic wand and could wave it and had a different system, could you do things in a different way? And I'm really talking about the kind of spend to save process, that you could do things in a different way, more expensive up front, but latterly less expensive, and therefore able actually to provide the resources for the people who we are looking after, rather than through staffing. I mean, I'm just interested to hear what you feel.
Just this time last year, we had 3 extra staff in the team, and we've done significant work in reducing the time spent on delivering an application by looking at whether or not we need to check so much. Because when a customer makes an application to the fund, we very often at the start, we're phoning the DWP to check when their benefit was paid, or check when this happened, or check about these sort of things. And we were often on the phone for 25 to 30 minutes listening to Vivaldi. This I felt was unsustainable in a start, and generally when we were phoning the DWP, the decision we were going to take wasn't any different at the end than it would have been at the beginning. So we said stop phoning. So we've seen a marked reduction in that. We also did some automation of letters. So we, instead of manually writing a decision letter to a customer, we put in some effort to sending automatically a decision letter from the system. While I do think there may be other areas where automation happens, right now I would say that the service is at its bone. We are, the only other option we would have would be to stop checking anything. And as soon as someone came and made an application, just turn around and go, okay, there you go. But if that was to happen, then we wouldn't have any money left after 6 months, so we'd sit twiddling our thumbs and saying, thanks very much. Customers would come to us for help, and we wouldn't have any money left, so we wouldn't be able to give it to them. Other local authorities in Scotland have different systems, but having different systems for using it, having spoken to them, we're not actually any different. One of the main benefits would be getting customers to apply themselves, which we've been trying to do quite significantly with community care grants. In a crisis situation, that just hasn't been possible. You get the occasional customer who'll make a crisis application online themselves, but the majority of them will continue to call for the safety net of the telephone call. And unless the Scottish Government are mandating that we must offer 3 methods. So my next step would have been, we'll just say that telephone isn't available for that. I tried that once before and they were on the phone in 3 days when a customer went to them and said, Dumfries and Galloway are not taking telephone applications anymore. So we have to continue delivering the service the way the customers want. Spend to save, would love it. Would love some extra staff for a short period to implement an online DHP application, which would save a little bit of time. However, an online DHP application is only any good if you can get customers to apply online. And that's the bigger challenge, which in this area with the rural nature of the communities, with the low availability of broadband, and asking our most vulnerable customers, who generally their only access to the internet is via mobile phone, to complete a 4-page application to the level of detail that we would need to make their award, is, I feel, a big ask, and probably not something that would be worth the investment.
Aware if any other local authorities use any online applications for DHP? Still the same system?
We have an online application just now. The suggestion is the online application for DHP would automate directly into the back office. I'm not aware of any other local authorities who've had any success in that area, although I'm not disputing that there would be. It's just the time and effort to implement that online application. I think we'd be looking at 3 or 4 years before we received the efficiencies back, which is an awful long time in the world of benefit.
Okay, I've got Stephen and Ronnie.
Thank you. Obviously, the 98k would be for 1 year. So I'm just sort of, I think it's maybe touching on Jane's point about maybe try to do it differently, and obviously that's something that is a gradual process, but there's limits to how much uptake there'll be with the most vulnerable. But effectively, it's got, the cost of delivering, I don't know what the total would be, but 1.5 million in terms of welfare and DHP-ish. I mean, you'll have the figures exactly there, but at the moment it's about 1,330,000 or something. So it's this extra, that's what we're getting funded. So we're asking for the extra 98 for this year, but then next year, and then the year after, I think the concern is, are we just putting off something because that anti-poverty fund's not going to last forever, and we're going to hit a brick wall eventually if we keep doing it the same way. So I think that's really where I'm trying to get to the true concern and how we deal with that. Maybe the spend to save is a kind of option.
I would agree that we are continually looking at how we can do it better and more streamlined. And I think, as Paul has tried to outline there, we have got to that point where we have streamlined it as much as we possibly can. And you're right, there may come a point that we have to say we start to have to withdraw a bit from the service. We continually, with the other local authorities, make representation to the Scottish Government regarding what they expect from the Scottish Welfare Fund legislation and what they expect local authorities to deliver, and make the point that the funding they actually give local authorities to deliver that is not sustainable. They have given a 3-year commitment of what the funding for administration is. There is a slight increase potentially in next year, which would ease the ongoing pressure. However, those representations are ongoing to the Scottish Government that really, if you want this level of service from local authorities, they need to look at funding it. So while we're making a bid into the anti-poverty fund just now to say this is what we need, there is continual ongoing work to say, well, what can we do to try and streamline the service? And I'm not saying we'll be in a better position this time next year that we can reduce, but a lot will depend on what the Scottish Government say as funding going forward for us, as well as this developments they start to make with their new powers under welfare, whether that changes the landscape in which we're working as well. So I think the landscape at the moment is very unsure going forward. So all we can do at the moment is plan for what we need for the next coming year, and keep an eye on where we are going forward.
Maybe through yourself, Chair, but is that something we can ask for the next meeting of this, to get a report back in terms of what representation has been made and what response or what actions the Scottish Government is prepared to look at in terms of helping sustain the level of service required to deliver these things, in terms of an action from this subcommittee?
You make those representations, first of all. Obviously, I'm quite happy to do that. I've write to the Minister on that point, and then circulate responses to members. I mean, I think one of the challenges is a moving feast. We don't know what. I mean, my instinct is that the powers and burdens, if you like, and extra responsibilities are going to increase on local authorities going forward in terms of changes to the benefit system as a result of new powers coming to the Scottish Parliament. So I think it is one that it's difficult to plan that far ahead other than just for the next 12 months in terms of staffing levels. I take that actually pressures will increase, but I think in the first instance, certainly make that representation to the Scottish Government over the support we've got, and then we can circulate that from there if members are happy. Okay,
Just to go back to the conversation we were having before that, just to say, as a member of the administration, I wish I had access to a magic wand, but we don't. When this was getting set up, this subgroup, we discussed how we deliver this and all the stuff you were saying about access to the system. And so we recognised early on that we'd have to help people because of the forms and because of the access to internet and stuff is varied across the region. And where the people need it is slightly, so I think we have recognised that early doors, and we put the people in there to help through CLD and other things. I think, if I remember rightly, some sort of assistance at one-stop shops and stuff. So, it's there. Unfortunately, we are where we are, and the only way to make that work would be sharing information with the Work and Pension Department. So you know how the sim, so you go in and interrogate it, but we're not allowed to do that, are we? We can't cross-fertilise with information. So we have to do it longhand, if you like. So people have to fill the forms in. And you're right, most people nowadays just use their mobile phones, and you can't do a big form like that on a mobile phone. And a lot of folk don't have printers to print it off in a hard copy either. So I totally understand why we need to do what we're doing. As I say, we discussed this way back when we first started this subgroup. And so just being consistent and nothing else. It's more a statement than a question, Chair. But
and Jane?
I'm sort of picking away at this. I mean, I tell you what sort of slightly upsets me is the use of money from the anti-poverty strategy, which actually we would like to go direct, either direct or to actually assuaging reasons for poverty. Ronnie's absolutely right. We did put in some assistance. We did think about trying to help people do stuff online. I mean, this translates down to individuals. And I presume there must be an element of who people are. And they arguably, some clients will be the same, I presume. You know who they are. Is it possible to identify people who actually could get to a customer service centre and be assisted to do something online? Is it possible, arguably, to provide a kind of motivational thing to persuade people to do it online? There's a carrot approach. I mean, this is what I'm getting at. Rather than simply spending £98,000, which is actually just going to go in and out straight away, it's not going to achieve anything, as opposed to really sort of inching our way over to going online, which would then make the service better and push forward. So I'm just reluctant, Colin, immediately just to say, here's 98,000. We know you've got a problem.
Yes, it's all possible. The problem we have with that is it's the resource we need to do it. So we know who applies into the system, obviously, but to delve into why they're making the application, to support that, to encourage people to access it through a different route or to access the support is the time and effort and resource that needs to take, because not only do you need to speak to individuals, you need to speak to supporting partners, supporting departments, and that's a resource intensive. And what we are talking about with the delivery at the moment is we can only, as Paul has described, is we take an application and we make a decision. That whole work that sits behind it is hugely resource intensive, and we just don't have that resource to do that at this point in time, and probably not going forward. And it's when we're talking about the type of clients that we do have are often chaotic lifestyles, usually come with a range of issues. That support's not a one-off. You know, when you're supporting somebody to access the system or to help them through one route, that support needs to be there when they try again and again and again, because we do have customers who do try to access it, you know, not 2 or 3 times, but multiple, into the 10s, 20 times. But it's the time and the resource to get to what's underneath that for the number of clients. That's the difficulty that we currently face.
The big challenges in the meantime, if we don't go ahead with 98,000, the turnaround time for a crisis grant won't be 1 day. And if we're keen on helping people in poverty, not delivering a crisis grant within that time scale, it's certainly no way to help people that are struggling. Likewise, through the CCG application, the time scale to deliver them will be increased, obviously, if we don't have this staffing level. So I think I hear what you say, Jane, about the use of the poverty fund, but actually, if we don't use it, then we're actually assisting people into further poverty by not delivering the benefits or the grants, rather, in the time scales that we're committed to doing so. Do you have any other? Stephen, yeah, sorry.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's, I mean, this is the world at large effectively telling us where we should be spending our money, I suppose. So whatever our vision for the anti-poverty strategy, if there's money there and there's a need, then it would seem perverse not to try and address that somehow. However we sort of dress it up in here, I think it does sort of, you could look at it you could reduce it and look at it very arithmetically and say, well, 98,000 would actually, could go to directly hundreds of clients, is one way of looking at it, or it could fund 4.8, whatever the FTE staff equivalent is. However, that's an enabling amount, which then allows, you know, the actual monies to get distributed more effectively and within targets. So it is one of these sort of balancing things, but obviously the need is there from the people who are vulnerable, and it's not ideal, but I mean, it would seem perverse not to support it, I feel.
And at the end of the day, it couldn't go into more grants if we didn't have the staff to actually administer those grants. I mean, these grants won't disappear, they'll still have to be administered, and they'll simply, potential is they could obviously build up if we don't have the staff to keep the turnover going. Roberta, sorry. Thanks for that, Roberta. Do you want to, sorry, I should have said, Roberta, I should have put your microphone. It was very good point. Sadly, none of it will be captured on the tape afterwards because you forgot to put your microphone on, but I won't get you to repeat it. But it was a very good point, actually. But can I remind members to put the microphones on? Then when anybody is listening to you on YouTube, they'll get to hear all the points you're making. Except for Ronnie.
This is like where we are. We know that there's new powers coming to the Scottish Government and benefits. Some of the benefits is going to be paid through, you know, they have the powers to create their own benefit system. So I hear what Jane and them are saying, but if we try and construct this thing that makes it, and the summit comes in left field, you know, we've got to just keep an eye on where we're going as a country with the new powers that are coming. And I think, you know, this is a stopgap just now until we see what's on the horizon. We might know better next year or the year after, whatever. So I could see this as a necessary spend at the moment. Who knows, we might get a system that's better, you know, because of the Scottish Government delivering benefits, or the benefit system that they'll deliver might be better than what we get now. So, you know, I'm just saying we should go with the recommendation.
Yeah, turn to the recommendations. Are members happy to note 2.1, note 2.2, and we're happy to recommend to full council the £98,000. Okay. Thank you very much, members. I don't have any further business, so thank you very much indeed for your attendance today.
And is that also including the agreement to write